What if the most famous promise in the Bible actually got lost in translation? You have heard it 100 times. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. And every single time your brain quietly swaps in the word happy. That swap is the problem. It is not a small one either. It changes the entire meaning of one of the most quoted passages in history. Today we open Matthew chapter 5. Look closely at one Greek word and show you why the Beatitudes promise something far tougher and far better than a good mood. No seminary training required. No confusing theology terms. Just plain English by the end of this video. Let's set the scene first, so none of this feels random. Matthew's Gospel was written to a mostly Jewish audience, somewhere between the years 60 and 90. The author has one goal above all else. He wants to prove that Jesus is the promised king, the one the Hebrew scriptures had pointed to for centuries. This audience is also living under Roman occupation. Life is hard, taxes are heavy, and hope feels thin on the ground. That detail matters more than it seems right now. By chapter 5, Jesus has already gathered his first disciples, and word about him is spreading fast through every small town nearby. Crowds are following him everywhere he goes, hoping for healing, hoping for answers, hoping for anything that feels like relief. So he climbs a hillside near the Sea of Galilee, sits down like a rabbi about to teach, and opens his mouth. What comes out is a Sermon on the Mount, the longest single block of Jesus' teaching found in any gospel, 3 full chapters of instruction. And the Beatitudes are the opening lines, the very first words this crowd hears. Think of them as the thesis statement for everything Jesus is about to say for the rest of the sermon. Get these lines wrong, and the rest of the sermon gets much harder to understand too, because everything after this builds on it. Before we even get to Matthew, this word already has a long history behind it. Long before Jesus ever climbed that hillside, Hebrew writers were using a similar idea all through the Psalms and the wisdom books. Psalm 1 opens with, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked." The Hebrew word there is Ashray, and it carries the same basic weight as Makarios does later in Greek. It describes a person standing on solid, unmoving ground, no matter what storms happen to be swirling around them at the time. That person is compared, just a few lines later, to a tree planted by streams of water, staying green even in a drought. So when Jesus opens his most famous sermon with this exact concept, his original Jewish audience would have caught the echo almost instantly, without anyone needing to explain it. He is not inventing a brand new idea out of nowhere. He is picking up a thread that runs through their entire scripture and pulling it somewhere new and unexpected. Here's the first section, straight from the text. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Let's slow down on each phrase, because the details matter. Poor in spirit does not mean broke, and it does not mean depressed. It means spiritually empty-handed. It is the posture of someone who knows they have nothing to offer God on their own merit. Mourning here is not just sadness over losing something. It is grief over how broken the world really is, including your own heart. Meek does not mean weak or timid. In the ancient world, this word described a powerful animal, like a war horse, trained to hold its strength in check. That is meekness. Strength under control, not the absence of strength. And hungering and thirsting for righteousness means craving a world set right at a bone-deep level. Not just wanting personal comfort or an easier week. Notice the rewards too. Kingdom of heaven means belonging to God's rule right now, not just someday. Inheriting the earth means these gentle people, not the loud and powerful ones, get the final say. Now here is the second half of the list, and it connects directly to the first. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Notice the pattern building across all 8 lines. The first 4 describe an inner posture: empty, grieving, gentle, hungry. The second 4 describe what naturally grows out of that posture: mercy, purity, peace, and even persecution. This is not a random grab bag of nice qualities. It is a chain reaction, one link pulling the next. Emptiness before God leads to mercy toward others. Honest grief leads to purity of heart. Gentleness leads to peacemaking. And peacemaking, in a broken, occupied world like the one Jesus was speaking to, often leads straight into opposition. One state produces the next, all the way down the line, ending right back where it started, with the kingdom of heaven. So here's where the real mistranslation happens, and it changes everything about how we read this passage. The Greek word behind blessed is Makarios. English translators were happy because it felt close enough at the time. It was not close enough, not even a little. The word happy actually comes from an old root meaning happenstance, as in whatever happens to land on you. Your mood rises and falls with your circumstances, day by day, hour by hour. Makarios describes something completely different. It points to a state of being complete, whole, and fully satisfied, regardless of what is happening around you. Ancient Greek writers even used this exact word to describe their gods, beings considered completely untouchable by outside circumstances, immune to bad luck, bad weather, or bad news of any kind. It was reserved for the powerful and the untouchable, not for ordinary struggling people. Jesus takes that same lofty, almost God-level word and hands it straight to grieving, hungry, persecuted people standing on a dusty hillside. That is the real shock hiding inside this passage, and it is remarkably easy to miss if you only ever read it in English. He is not telling these people they feel great at the moment, and he is not pretending their pain away. He is telling them they are anchored, steady, and complete on the inside, even while everything on the outside is falling apart around them. Let's make this practical, because ideas like this only matter if they land somewhere real. Picture someone sitting in a hospital chair during chemotherapy. Nobody in that room would call that person happy right now, and it would be strange to expect them to. Yet you have probably heard someone in that exact situation say, "I am blessed." They do not mean life feels good at this moment. They mean something deeper is holding them steady, something that does not rise and fall with the diagnosis. That is Makarios in action, right there in a hospital room. Or picture a single parent working 2 jobs, exhausted every single night, bills still piling up on the kitchen counter, who still says grace before dinner and actually means every word of it. That is not denial, and it is not putting on a brave face for anyone watching. That is the same word at work, quietly, underneath the exhaustion. It is not a painted smile stretched over real pain. It is an unshakable wholeness sitting underneath the pain itself, refusing to move no matter how hard the day gets. People usually ask a few questions at this point, so let's answer them directly. First, does this mean feeling happy is somehow wrong or shallow? Not at all. Happiness is a real, good gift, and there is nothing spiritual about pretending otherwise. The point is simply that happiness and blessedness are not the same gift. One depends heavily on your circumstances. The other does not depend on them at all. Second question. Does being blessed mean God owes you an easy, comfortable life? Actually, it is almost the exact opposite. Read the list again, slowly this time. Mourning, hunger, persecution. These are hard realities, not rewards handed out for good behavior. Third question. Does this mean you have to fake being okay when you actually are not? No. And this is genuinely important to hear. Mourning is on this list for a real reason, not as an afterthought. Real grief, the kind that keeps you up at night, has an honest place here. Jesus is saying that deep wholeness can exist right in the middle of hardship, not as an escape route away from it, and not as a replacement for it either. So let's bring this all the way together, back to where we started. Blessed never means a cheerful feeling that shows up and disappears with the ups and downs of your day. It means a settled, complete state that holds steady no matter what life throws at you, whether that is grief, hunger, persecution, or outright opposition from people around you. That is the quiet promise sitting inside every single Beatitude Jesus lists on that hillside. And it is the very same promise Hebrew writers had been pointing to centuries earlier, all through the Psalms. The question we opened with was whether this word got lost somewhere in translation. It did, and for centuries most readers never noticed. But now you know exactly what got lost. And more importantly, you know what to look for instead every time you read this passage again. Before you go, open your own Bible and read Matthew chapter 5 this week. Slowly out loud if you can manage it. Read it the way the original crowd on that hillside heard it, one line at a time, without rushing ahead to the next verse. Ask yourself honestly which beatitude describes exactly where you are standing right now, today, not where you wish you were standing instead. Maybe it is the mourning one. Maybe it is the hungry one. Maybe, if you are honest, it is the persecuted one. Drop your answer in the comments below, and I will personally read every single one of them. And if you want next week's lesson the moment it drops, hit subscribe right now before you forget. We are digging into another phrase from this exact same sermon that gets misquoted almost as often as this one, and trust me, you will not want to miss it.